attendance, Laura Banda on the video conference, Rowan Cecil, Michael Fortune, Ruth Ann Holloway, is she excused?
Last week was her last time.
Oh, that's right. We need to fill her space. Brian Marvel and Bob Perry. So appreciate everyone being here. Rowan, would you say the Pledge of Allegiance? Would you lead us? Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. We have the minutes. Wonder, I didn't see anything that I would change on the minutes.
I didn't see anything either.
Yeah.
I move we approve the minutes of, what's the date on it?
May 27th.
May 27th, 2020.
Laura, anything you saw in these? Okay.
No, they look good.
Jesse does a great job.
Yep.
I want to
Thanks.
give you a pat on the back. Thank you for
Thank you.
the nice job that you do on them.
Michael,
So-
voting tonight.
Yes, Michael will be a voting member tonight. So we need a motion.
I made the motion.
Okay, second.
I'll second the motion.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay,
I didn't hear Laura.
Laura, did you?
Yes, I.
Got it, thanks.
Thanks. Okay, we have public comment tonight. And do we have anybody to give us any feedback? Looks like we've got Mark Daines and Doug Rich. Are you for this public comment?
For the public hearing.
Oh, that's right. So, do we have any public comments from anybody?
I don't see any on my end.
Thank you, Scarlett. Do you have anybody for public comment that did any emails or?
I'll check really
Text?
quick, but I hadn't received any before I walked out. It does not look like we have any.
Okay. Okay, so we will close that part of the meeting, and now we'll go to the public hearing. It says, prior to making a recommendation on a request by Doug Rich Development Incorporated to rezone parcel numbers 02212-004 and 02-212-005 and 02-171-0001 from commercial general to multifamily high, located in the general area of 265 North Gateway Drive and 565 West 100 North, containing approximately 7.9 acres. The purpose of the public hearing is to provide an opportunity for anyone interested to comment on the proposal before action is taken. So, do we have any emails or texts from people about that? We do have Mark Daines and Doug Rich.
Chair, if I could. It's Michael Fortune. I just wanted to bring up a point that on another board here in the Valley, with Bear River Association of Governments, the Human Resource Board, I serve on that board with Mayor Daines. And so I just wanted to make it a point, since Mark Gaines is a part of this proposal. I don't know him or anything, but I just wanted to make it a public notice that
That it might be a
I do
conflict?
serve with his wife as the mayor on that board.
Not
So,
his wife.
Is that a conflict?
not his wife?
I know her husband.
Okay, then maybe I'm okay.
His name is Peter.
Okay, well then I may be okay.
No conflict.
Thank you, Mayor.
I don't have any public hearing comments either.
Okay. Commission members, any comments? We do have information from the city.
I got a couple comments. I can wait for
You want to
until we
wait
get to
till we jump
legislative action.
Action.
Okay.
So,
So, do we take comments from the developer now, or do we do that down in the action item?
You can do it at either point in time,
Okay.
but generally, this time is for the public to make their comment, for you to listen and get their ideas, and then the developer, and you can certainly have them talk now if you'd like, but it's certainly fine to close the public hearing and have them talk during your discussion.
Okay, I think we'll do that. So we don't have anyone to speak in the public hearing, and so we will close that portion of the meeting and go to the action item. And so I think I'd like to hear from the developer now. Okay, the action item is the Providence Planning Commission will consider for recommendation a request by Doug Rich Development Incorporated, to change parcel numbers 02-212-0004 and 02-212-0005 and 02-171-0001 from Commercial District, General District, to multifamily high, located in the general area of 265 North Gateway Drive and 565 West 100 North, containing approximately 7.9 acres. So, Doug, do you have any comments? We talked to you last time, but tell us anything that you might have.
Doug's mic's not working,
Okay?
so we don't really have much more to add to this from the last meeting. Really, at this point, I think it's if you have any comments or concerns for us in the time period that you've been able to review this.
I have two. Rowan, the chair, I have two comments.
Okay.
One is that last time we met, we did not allow this change from commercial to high rise. So if we make this one where it's kind of getting ourselves crossways possibly. And also our Doug over here made a comment about this is also in our city plan already as commercial.
Yes.
So now we're playing with the city plan.
Okay.
Bob, the chair,
Yes.
and probably Scarlett too. This is the first time I've seen the GSI parcel summary. Is that, everything look okay on that?
Well, I included it because just a minute. I included it because in last meeting, the developers talked about some of the challenges that they would face developing this property. So I thought perhaps a visual. Now, bear in mind, this is a graphic from the county GIS. It has a disclaimer on there that says may require further analysis. So they would certainly, and I know they've had some wetland delineation done, so they probably know right where that is, but we would certainly have them work with geotech and things like that to make sure that where their challenges are. But this was just a visual, so you could kind of see what they were talking about.
The other question I had was the fire department life safety review. That's a new form that we haven't seen before, but apparently it looks okay.
Now that's just based on the talking about changing zones. That's not the final review. Whatever they end up doing, whether it's a commercial project or a multifamily project, when it gets if they have to come in for a conditional use or if they're doing subdividing, then we also get the fire department involved. So you'll see an additional information from them, and then the additional information might look like it's more restrictive because then they're talking about a specific plan and talking about concerns. But this is just based on what Aaron's recommendation as far as if you were to change zones, if there would be any problems.
Okay. Like I say, I hadn't seen that form
Right.
before, and I want to make sure that there's something.
He doesn't often do them at the zoning time, but with some of the sensitive areas, we felt like it was prudent for him to take a look.
So, comments from the rest of the commission? Michael, have you got anything?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Rowan. We had another piece of property that was in commercial and with a request to change. And it seemed as if the Planning Commission felt very strong that we can't grow more land, can't grow more commercial, and we really want to keep that. And as I've driven by this property several times, and that's the one thing that kept sticking out to me was it's going to be commercial on both sides. We don't know what Johnson's will do on the other side, but more than likely commercial on Main Street. And so I think for us to stay consistent is what's most important for developers and so forth as they look to the future and other properties. And so I kind of leaned that way that we would stay commercial with it. I know it was mentioned that the challenge would be, what type of commercial property could go in there because of the creek and so forth. But I think if we can get housing in there, high density housing, we can certainly get some type of commercial in.
Okay.
Those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Rolling the chair.
Yes.
Where that is going to provide a pretty good load of traffic into Gateway Drive. Where it is. I don't think that we will ever see that developed commercially, personally. I just think that the way things are going, commercial is just kind of going by the word. We have some high-rise apartments being built over here, and one of the problems was is the owner tried to have it as an office space, and he couldn't sell it for office space for 7 years. So then it went to it and made apartments. So I have a suspicion that this of it ever going commercial is pretty darn slim chance. Just like I felt somewhat about the other one. I think it's going to be, the likelihood that they're going to be able to do anything commercial in there is very slim.
Were you talking about that mini golf?
Right here.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same gentleman had the problem there. For 7 years, he tried to do something with it, and he couldn't do anything, so they ended up coming, and we now have townhomes.
The big factor for this piece of property is what Johnson's is gonna do with their property.
True. If we
That's a
only knew,
huge factor,
if we only knew.
yeah. And I don't know what they're going to do. If we had a crystal ball, that would make our job a lot easier, don't you think?
So we go knock on their door.
I bet they don't know yet.
You're right.
I bet they don't know yet. Wanda, what have you,
Laura?
Laura, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I agree, the townhomes that are there, that cross street right on Gateway, that was commercial, and I think planning commission voted to keep that commercial, and city council, of course, who has the oversee on that, moved that to townhomes. And so you try to look and see where commercial is, because once we lose commercial property, we're not going to get that back. But you wish you had a crystal ball to be able to say what may come in there, because I don't disagree that, especially with the way things have gone the last 4 months, that people's shopping habits and those type of things have all changed. So it would have to be, it would be surprising to be able to see that much commercial come in that quickly in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair. This is Brian. I think, LeGrand Johnson's got this piece of property here. I think that's great. LeGrand Johnson used to have a piece of property, and it was developed into the Marriott and a strip mall there. And what's the name of that utility company over there? Conservis.
Conservice?
Conservis went in there, and it's quite a nice piece, and so nice that they kept going. Wasatch Property Management went across the river. They've done the same thing. Then somebody went across the street, put in a really nice Class A building. So I can see this property, if those succeed, that this would be a prime candidate to be another one of those properties, if it was combined with LeGrand Johnson, where you get access to Main Street and Highway 165.
Okay. The conclusions of the findings from the city is the general plan. The city's zone districts include commercial general and multifamily high districts. The general plan vision and key initiatives are listed above the finding of fact in this report. The property is currently zoned commercial general district. The general plan map, future rezoning, or existing districts or annexed area does not anticipate this property zone changing from commercial general. And so, as we've talked about last week, we turned down a request. It was commercial highway district that we opted not to change. But this is commercial general, and as I look at it, I see that there's a lot of potential there to do something like the hotel has done that has brought more business, because businesses are symbiotic and they like to have lots of other businesses around them. Yes, this property has a lot of geological issues with it, with the water. But then that makes it so that other things, a nice area can be developed, a wetlands area that looks nice if we have a commercial building there. So the conclusions of law, that's the staff recommendations, right?
I think staff just provided you the information, and you can kind of draw your own recommendation. But the conclusions of law is the staff's viewpoint on how this works with each of the findings of facts. The only condition that we had is that whatever happens is that the applicant continue to meet all state, federal laws, codes, rules, approval by the city of any application, or paperwork does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. But as far as our recommendation, we really didn't make one. Staff leans on that general plan. So for us to recommend something contrary to the general plan, unless we're going to recommend a general plan change, would be highly unlikely.
Okay.
So, and where that general plan is so
It's set.
new,
Yeah.
and had so much debate on it that we're not recommending a change to the general plan at this point.
Rowan?
Something in interest, when Holmes there, the Grand Johnson then would really like to make something commercial for those homes to be able to go right to it, right there. Within walking distance, so it's a double whammy that is for Logan gets commercial and we get residential.
Can I make one comment in regards to LeGrand Johnson and the proximity to this piece?
Yes.
There, a few years ago, there was discussion with Dick Sackett and LeGrand Johnson about acquiring this piece. The discussion that was had is if they were to come in and acquire this piece and combine it with their piece in Logan, they would look for proceeding to annex that piece into Logan City to combine it as one parcel. So, in viewing that as a adjacent piece to something that LeGrand may or may not do, if they decide to do something, the probability exists there of them going through with the proceedings to
To pull it into Logan.
Which would require the city to approve a disconnect, so they can't take it out without the city
Right.
authorizing it. Now in the county, that's somewhat different, but the city would have to approve disconnect. They'd have to go through that process too, so.
And wouldn't the city of Providence
and I understand that, but I'm just bringing up that issue as far as LeGrand Johnson doing something in conjunction. The other issue that you face with them coming in and doing something where other cities have done this in properties that are in adjacent cities is, you run the risk of them taking this parcel and using it mostly as a parking lot.
Okay. There's nothing to stop somebody from saying that they would want LeGrand Johnson property in Providence either. So it would go the other way.
No, and understand that, but knowing and realizing that if you combine this parcel with LeGrand Johnson, the most desirable piece is the LeGrand Johnson piece that faces the highway.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Any further comments from anyone?
That being that they would utilize the frontage for the most business.
Mark, there's something wrong with your microphone because we're not getting what you're saying.
I think it's our bandwidth on our.
Oh, is it?
Or his,
Yes.
those bandwidth.
On my end.
Do you want to repeat what you said?
My statement was just that, looking at this in conjunction with what Graham Johnson is, the control that they would look at utilizing this piece based off the discussion we've had is the back portion of a project possibly, where you have the potential where most of that land would end up as a parking lot or something to support more visible structures the other thing that we've looked at from this project is based off of the issues that we have with the wetlands and is creating, in conjunction with the city, is more open space for the city.
Okay. I'm assuming that we caught some of that, but not all of it, but I think we get the gist of what you were saying. Appreciate your comments. Without further discussion,
Can I make a motion?
yes.
I move that we make a recommendation to the city council to rezone parcel numbers 02-212-0004, 02-212-0005, and 02-171-001 from commercial general district to multifamily high.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second?
So then if no one chooses to second,
The motion
then that
dies.
motion dies for lack of a second.
Okay. Looks like the motion, Laura, do you? Okay. For lack of a second, the motion dies. So, at this point, do I ask for another motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make a chair, Michael the chair, can I
Yes.
make a comment? I think part of it is we don't know what's going to happen. We know what one group would like to do with it, high density housing, townhouses, apartments. But we don't know what Johnson's is gonna do. And yes, maybe there's a chance that Johnson's would wanna make that a parking lot. Well, Providence would have to approve that becoming a parking lot, which I don't think that's anything we would do. But I do think that if they do develop something there like they've done in the other places with Wasatch property, it does expand. I mean, there's plenty of room there for other strip type stores, some strip type mall center type thing area over in there. I just think if depending on what they do, could open the door for commercial there, which would benefit Providence. I'd like to wait to see. But then again, as landowners and so forth, I'm sure they want to do something with the property. I understand that too. And looking over here at the other one that they had to wait a long time, could it get anyone interested in commercial and rezoned it for the townhomes over there. But I just think this, where it's located and the potential of it as commercial could be very valuable to the city. I'm not ready to give up on it yet, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. So the other motion died, and do we have another motion?
Well, I'll make a motion that we leave it, commercial general district, those three pieces of parcels, 004, 0005, and 0001.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Rowan Cecil, second. Motion by Bob Perry. Okay, any further discussion on it? On the motion? Laura?
Kathleen, could you repeat the motion? I'm sorry.
The motion is to deny the change from commercial general to multifamily high.
Thank you.
Okay. No further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the motion is that we deny the change, and we'll recommend to the city council that it not be changed. Okay, we have a study item.
Kathleen, may I make a comment really
Yes.
quick? Mark and Doug, this will go to city council next Wednesday. It's on their June 17th agenda for them to make a decision on your application.
Oh, thank you.
You know, either my connection or your connection, I can't hear anything.
Okay, I'll try again in the mic and maybe that will help better. This is going to go to the city council next Wednesday. The planning commission's recommendations will be included in the city council packet, but it is on the city council's agenda to make a decision for next Wednesday.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is a study item.
Excuse me.
Yes.
This is Brian. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Doug, for coming and discussing this with us. Thanks.
The city council has asked that we review the city code 10-8-1 area regulations and 10-8-9 design standards for attached and multifamily residential development with focus on multifamily high density. So where does that start, Scarlett?
Page 35.
It looks like this, Kathleen. That's the first page, right after Aaron's.
This?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, do you want to talk to us a little bit about this, Scarlett?
Well, as Ryan explained last week, this has been, we've had several city council members ask that the planning commission take a look at multifamily high density. So one of the concerns that was expressed was open space in relationship to the buildings. So there are several things you could think about. You could recommend that we no longer have multifamily high density. You could look at the requirements in the multifamily zones and recommend that we require more density or a proportionate density based on building, not density, landscaping, or a proportionate open space based on height of building and certain things like that, so that you keep your density, but you get a feel of more open landscaped area. Excuse me. Or you could maybe change the way we look at multifamily high. Maybe they have to come in under the planned unit development ordinance, which has some stricter landscaping requirements with it. So there's all kinds of options. Staff is not making any recommendations one way or the other because they're all good. They all have pros and cons. And for you guys to get your feelings out there, I sent the information about the sites that we looked at a couple of years ago. So that's pretty much it for right now.
Okay. So, Laura, do you have any ideas on this?
That's a broad, very broad thing to look at
Yes.
as far as just fighting if we should have that. I guess I would want to start by looking at those recommendations that Scarlett sent, just to see the differences amongst the community before I would feel I would be able to make a recommendation.
Well, as I look at those sites, she's right. There are some that have nice yards, and there are others that have, there's barely a little tiny square of grass, nothing in the back, and in the front is just a little tiny square of grass. But I guess if people buy it, that's what they see it, and it's like buying a house next to a dairy and then complaining that the dairy stinks, You knew what it was when you bought it, And if it weren't selling, then they wouldn't, they wouldn't build them. Personally, I think it gives more flexibility to have more things that people can do. I don't think they're ugly. I think they don't look very homey because there's not a lot of grass area. But Mayor, you raised your hand back there.
Just something else to consider, and I think you were starting to get to the point. One option is to do nothing. So if a council says, we want housing with more open space, then you can vote multifamily medium. It's in our code. So the ability for the council to say, in this part of town, we want something with more open space, we can vote, we can say, no, we'll vote for multifamily medium, but not multifamily high. So I think you're making a point in that is you're taking away the option of
Right.
multifamily high. And a council may decide that multifamily high is totally appropriate in some part of the city.
Right. And if we take it away, then that choice no longer exists.
And from a business standpoint, and I look at all of you, you've all had some businesses you've run at one time or another. When you can't sell as many units because it's multifamily medium, each unit costs more to build.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't sell it for more money, then you don't build it. If you can put more homes on a lot, then you can sell them for less money because your cost is less. Just a matter of economics.
Yeah.
Rowan, the chair,
Yes.
we went through these, spacing and everything, time and time again in setting up for the city
Master plan.
Master plan. I think we ought to just leave things as they are.
Bob, Chair.
Yes.
Mike and Brian weren't here when we had that meeting. I think there was a handful of us here that we went over some of the setbacks, and but we've worked on it for quite a while. I think. I can
Months.
remember working on
Months.
Lots of discussion.
If we need to maybe eliminate multifamily high, or maybe just save it for an area that where what is going to fit, fine. But at this point, I'm happy to see. I'm happy what I'm looking at here at this paper. Leave it as is. And
Okay, we don't take action on this, it's just a discussion item. And then what happens to it now that we've discussed it? We send it back and say, we don't want to make any changes, we don't vote.
Right, it's just a discussion item. We'll have the minutes. We can carry that sentiment back to the council members that ask you to look at it. We can let them know that you looked at it and you discussed it, and we can send them a copy of your minutes.
Okay. I'm all in favor of flexibility, giving as many choices as we can as long as it makes sense. We'd have to go back and change the master plan
That's right.
too.
Bob, the chair,
Yes.
does Mike or Brian have some input on this
Brian, do you
discussion?
have anything?
I've got lots of questions on it as I've gone through the 10.8.1 and 10.8.9. I've got real questions as to why the city and maybe the mayor or some of the other members can tell me why it is that we're interested in the look, the feel, the touch, the color of multifamily high when we're not so interested in that in single family residents or other residents. And so I see that as a dividing line. Why are we involved with that? You tell me, Rowan, maybe you can go back to your months and months of going through this. Why are all of a sudden we've got to inspect for how much brick is on the front of the building? And is it, one of the phrases was using very low maintenance materials to build these buildings. It just smacks against, the single family homes where you just decide whatever you want to put in within reason.
A lot of this is since this interest of increasing the number of residences, having a smaller square foot came to us, was it about 3 years ago, Bob, that this hit us? And then we started working on this, and that's why it's kind of a newie for us. You know, the homes are sitting right over here on Gateway.
Yep.
But that's new for us. And so we worked on it and really spent a lot of time deciding on sizes, setbacks, widths, and so on down the line. We have spent hours on it. And I think we just need the flexibility that if they want to go multifamily medium, fine, but if somebody comes in with multiple family high, and it fits for a certain area, it fits.
Scarlett, does, if we get rid of multifamily high, does this fly in the face of what the state is asking us to do with affordable housing?
It may or it may not. Just because it's multifamily high doesn't mean that it's affordable, for one thing. I mean, you can have some very, very, very nice, high density, very expensive high density units. But traditional theory is if a developer can get more units, they should be able to make a profit without having such high price tag on the units. One of the reasons we did not have a design standard for multifamily homes until about 3 years ago,
Right.
maybe even 2 years ago. And we had requests for to use multifamily in some areas. And one of the biggest comment, well, I won't say biggest, a comment that we heard many, many times was, we don't know what it will look like. Now, a lot of times you don't know what a single family subdivision is going to look like either, but I think people had a more comfort zone with the unknown in a single family development than a multifamily development. I think there was some fear factor out there, and so to help with that and to be able to, and we actually did have developers asking too, what are your standards for multifamily? And so we took that on, and at the direction of the council and the the staff, and then the planning commission went down that road. So that's why,
Design standard.
Brian, we have the design standards was really to kind of help take some of the mystery out of what a multifamily development would look like. I don't personally think that it helped anybody's comfort zone. People are still nervous about multifamily going next to them, but it does give us a tool to look at and to try and keep the developments looking as nice as possible, and yet we still want them, if it's a developer that's trying to do something affordable, we still want them nice, but we want to be able to work with the developers too. So hopefully we've got those kind of options in there. That was the goal. I don't know if we achieved it or not, but that was the goal and the reasoning behind it.
Don't you think people at the planning commission went that direction too? Because people are afraid to get a trashy apartment building in their neighborhood, and so they wanted some modicum of control to say we don't want trashy looking. But I don't think we have trashy looking apartments these days. I think they do a really nice job.
One thought on that is that the designer or the person responsible for overseeing the house is the homeowner. You know, they'll be, you know, in a custom built home, they're involved in that, but in a multifamily, that's not necessarily the case.
It's a developer.
The developer is now the designer rather than the homeowner.
Right.
So you want to keep some standards. So it's not uncommon have a standard inside the multifamily that you wouldn't necessarily have in a single family. So it's not uncommon, but it's good to have.
I remember right, our charrettes back in 2017, people were asking for multifamily housing, weren't they, at one point, at the very beginning of our general plan?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, people were asking. I don't know that I would say they ask for multifamily high specifically, but they ask for a variety of housing types. And we did have people that wanted to be able to have multifamily housing in not so traditional areas. Up on the benches was one of the things we actually heard, and of course that really caused a lot of angst when that went, when we tried to put the pedal to the metal, so to speak. But yes, in the charrettes, we did hear that people wanted options for housing. That was quite clear. Options for housing and trails and bicycle paths. So,
Well, again, I'm comfortable with just leaving this as is at this point.
One other thought is we have had 2 developers in the last 2 planning and zoning meetings request multifamily high. It would be interesting to see why they would have chosen high rather than medium and would have asked that potential question. If they'd still been on, I think that would have been an interesting question. Why they would choose to apply the same number of meetings we've had that those requests, not medium, not but it's interesting that that's the demand right now.
Well, land is not getting any less expensive. And if you put a lot of units on one piece of land, you can make more money than if you put one house on a piece of land. So I think it's an economic thing.
It's purely, this is Brian, it's purely economic. My experience recently has been part of this multifamily high that's gone in on golf course. Is that what we call it? You call the new one?
yes,
Not that one, no, not that one. The one over First South.
Gateway.
Gateway.
Gateway, okay, so the Gateway went in. Before the Gateway was started, there was 2 parcels, or maybe 3 or 4, but Ken Campbell owned the piece on the south against the church building. And I went to Ken as a friend, and I asked him if he was interested in selling, and I went to him, and he said, yes, I'm interested in selling. So I went out and got an appraisal on the property and learned what we could do with it. And Ken and I sat down, and I said, this is what the appraiser says. And I told him, I said, I can't make any money on this. I'm going to spend every dime I've got. I'm going to make $100,000. It's going to take 5 years of my life. It's not going to happen. But, so I took my money. I was only going to put 18 units there. I think there's going to be 30 going to be put in there. I'm not happy at all with those units over there. The people are so crowded. So I took my money and I went to St. Louis and I bought some older buildings and we refurbed them. Those buildings are high density where we bought. I bought it with a partner. Those buildings were high density. They were high density and the neighborhood would start to run down. So the owner went to the federal government and said, we'll take Section 9. Section 9 says the federal government will pay the rent. They paid the rent. The people moved in. The people lived all day long, 24/7. They lived in their units. The place went right downhill. It was vacant for 2 years before we bought it and refurbed it back. And I have strict instructions from my property managers to never rent Section 9. That we need people that are working to live in this building, and hopefully they'll take some pride in where they live and participate, in this little tiny community, and we will keep it up and keep it nice. So seen all these units over here. The other side of the coin is my son bought a similar unit to these over here. He bought one on west side of Logan. They were very popular. Building was almost complete, 30, 40, maybe 50% complete. The whole building was sold just like that. They get a little bit further down, sold. So as fast as they could build those units, they were sold. Yes, there's a demand for it, but what is those places going to look like 100 years from now? And I think that's our responsibility. I don't know
They'll be
what they're
torn
gonna.
down.
Pardon?
They'll be torn down.
Right, well, yeah, and they'll put something on bigger, I don't know, but I'm concerned about, the next 100 years. I think that's what we're concerned about as a commission. The next 100 years, what's it gonna look like? I looked on North Logan, 3 or 4 blocks,
It's 22,
2200 north,
yeah.
3 or 4 blocks off of Main Street, off the highway. And that place was zoned and built, multifamily, I don't know how high, but multifamily. And I've worked with people that have tried to rent in there, and I've been through those units, and they need to be torn down. They're an eyesore. The wrong people are being attracted to that area because the rents are low and the places are not kept up. Part of it was because they used very high maintenance building materials too. And they won't keep them up. They won't put a new siding job on it. They won't put a new roof on it. To make the money. So I don't feel good at all about multifamily high. If we keep it there as a tool, I think that's great. I don't have a problem with that.
A lot of this came from my experience. I have 27 grandkids. All the 27 grandkids, 7 of them are married, and 6 of them have bought condominiums. One of them bought a home in Houston because he makes $120,000 a year.
But everybody else is buying.
Everybody else are buying townhomes because they can afford them and they enjoy them because they don't have a big yard to take care of. They can go off Titlewood and do whatever they want to do on the weekend. They're wide open. The grandson, I have to admit, that's in Houston, he's home mowing the lawn.
Buying new lawnmowers. Okay, well, I think the minutes should reflect that we're recommending to just leave it alone. Gives us another tool to use when people come. Any reports that we need? I sat in on the webinar that they had the other day. It was interesting. There's another one coming up. When is it?
Tomorrow
Tomorrow. Okay.
at noon.
And they're pretty short and sweet, and you're not on there to participate. That you can ask a question, but I would recommend that if you have time. Scarlett sent that out, and you sent it out to everyone as well. So I would recommend that not all the information is pertinent to us, but there is some information that is pertinent to us serving on the city and understanding some of the codes and things that are going on. So I would recommend that you do that. Any other reports?
Vice chair, we should
Oh yes, we should.
elect a vice chair.
Okay. Should we put that on the agenda for the next time? Can we do
We
that
can
if
do
it's
that.
not? If it's not on the agenda, we can't do it, right?
I'd have to look at your bylaws. It's better to have it on the agenda.
Let's make sure that we get that on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
Next meeting scheduled for,
I'll try to make it.
You made this one?
2 weeks. Do we have anything going on, or?
It would be for the 8th. Normally you'd meet on the second
Yeah.
Wednesdays.
Second Wednesday.
So July
Normally
8th.
the 8th,
July 8th, okay.
Unless there was something special.
Okay.
Yes, staff report.
The staff reports.
We actually,
they're not on-
Ryan and I have talked, and generally our report is part of your discussion. We really don't have
any
anything additional.
things.
And we also want to be very conscious of making sure that we do follow the Open Meetings Act. We've always tried really hard to do that, but sometimes when we start with commission and staff reports, sometimes we can have a longer discussion than what we intended, and so then it turns into maybe something that should have been on the agenda. So I think the safest way is we'll report as needed throughout the meeting on the different items
Okay.
and not have
Good
specific
idea.
reports at the end.
Okay.
I move we close this meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I would also like to make sure that if any of you attended that meeting, if you'll send me an email,
The training.
the training meeting, any training meetings that you attend, please send me an email so we can keep track of that.